The transport shuttle touched down on Veritas Prime with barely a whisper. Hana pressed her face against the window, watching the massive space station spin slowly against a backdrop of distant stars. Somewhere inside that enormous structure was the Galactic Concordat University, and somewhere inside that university was her future. She grabbed her bag and followed the other passengers into the arrival bay. Most of them were aliens. A tall Keltharan with blue skin brushed past her without looking. Two small Pixith chattered to each other in their musical language. Nobody paid attention to the human walking among them. Hana told herself that was fine. Humans were still new to the galactic community. She would prove herself. The university campus spread across 3 entire levels of the station. Hana got lost twice before finding the administrative office. A bored-looking Thalaxian behind the desk handed her a datapad without comment. Orientation starts in 1 hour. Level 6, Conference Hall Beta. Don't be late. Conference Hall Beta was packed with students from dozens of species. Hana found a seat near the back and tried not to stare at everyone. She had studied alien species before coming here, but seeing them in person was different. A professor whose species she didn't recognize stood at the front and began explaining university rules. After the formal presentation ended, students began talking among themselves. A Vrelnathi student sitting nearby glanced at Hana. His scales were a deep green color. "You're human?" "Yes, I'm Hana. I just arrived today." The Vrelnathi nodded slowly. "I'm Minho, been here 2 years. Advice? Keep your head down. Humans are still on probation with the Concordat." "Probation? Not officially. But that's how some people see it. Your species is young, unproven. Some faculty think humans are too emotional to handle serious academic work." Minho's expression softened slightly. "Not everyone thinks that. But enough do that you should be careful." A Keltharan student leaning against the wall nearby laughed. "Especially careful around Professor Tayman's pet. That thing will eat you if you get too close." Hana felt her stomach tighten. "Pet?" Minho and the Keltharan exchanged looks. The Keltharan grinned, showing too many teeth. "You haven't heard? Professor Tayman teaches xenobiology. He brings his Terror-Hound everywhere. Things from Vrelnath, Death World Predator, weighs more than 3 humans put together." "It's not actually called a Terror-Hound," Minho said quietly. "That's just what students call it. The creature's name is Buell, but yes, you should stay away from it. Buell doesn't like strangers." Over the next few days, Hana heard more stories about Buell. Everyone had something to say about the creature. A student claimed Buell had cornered her in a hallway and growled for 10 minutes straight. Another said the creature had broken its restraint once and security had to seal off an entire section. A teaching assistant swore Buell could smell fear and would stalk anyone who showed weakness. Hana finally saw Professor Tayman and his companion on her 4th day. She was walking to the library when she noticed students ahead pressing themselves against the walls. Then she saw why. Professor Tayman walked down the center of the corridor like he owned it. He was tall for a Vrelnathi, his scales a pale silver color. His eyes were sharp and calculating. But it wasn't the professor that made everyone move aside. Buell walked beside him without any leash or restraint. The creature was massive. Its body was covered in black scales that seemed to absorb light. 4 powerful legs carried it with surprising grace. Its head was broad and flat with amber eyes that tracked every movement around it. Spines ran along its back and tail. Its mouth was closed, but Hana could imagine the teeth hidden behind those lips. As they passed, Buell's head turned. Those amber eyes locked onto Hana. The creature's lip curled slightly, showing just the edge of a fang. A low rumble came from deep in its chest. The sound made Hana's bones vibrate. Then they were passed, continuing down the corridor. Students slowly peeled themselves off the walls. "See?" Minho appeared beside her. "That's why we stay away. Buell doesn't trust anyone except Professor Tayman." That evening, Hana met with Professor Kwan, the human department head. His office was small but comfortable. Pictures of Earth hung on one wall. Hana felt a wave of homesickness seeing them. "How are you settling in?" Professor Kwan asked. "It's different, but good. I'm learning a lot. I heard you saw Professor Tayman's companion today. Word traveled fast." Hana nodded. "It growled at me. It growls at everyone. Buell has been with Professor Tayman for almost 15 years. In all that time, the creature has never warmed up to anyone else." Professor Kwan leaned forward. "I'm telling you this because you'll be working in the xenobiology department. You might encounter them regularly. The key is to not show fear and to not approach. Buell interprets both as threats. Is it really that dangerous? Vrelnath produces apex predators that make Earth's lions look like house cats. Buell is one of those predators. Professor Taemin has control over it, but that control doesn't extend to others. Professor Kwan's expression was serious. Hana, humans are still proving ourselves here. We can't afford incidents. If something happened between you and that creature, it would reflect badly on all of us. Hana understood what he wasn't saying. Don't cause trouble. Don't make mistakes. Don't give them reasons to doubt humans. The next week, Hana received her research assignment. Her hand shook slightly as she read the message. She had been assigned to assist with Professor Taemin's advanced xenobiology project. It was a prestigious position. Most students would kill for this opportunity, but it also meant she would be working in the same lab as Buell. Minho found her in the cafeteria, staring at her data pad. What's wrong? She showed him the message. His scales darkened slightly, which she had learned meant concern. That's actually a great opportunity. Professor Taemin's research is some of the most important work being done in xenobiology. But Buell will be there, yes. Minho sat down across from her. Listen, maybe it won't be as bad as you think. Just follow the professor's instructions. Don't make sudden movements. Don't stare at Buell, you'll be fine. Hana wasn't sure she believed that. But she had come to Veritas Prime to prove herself. Running away from this assignment would be admitting defeat before she even started. That night she lay in her small dormitory room, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere in the university, Buell was sleeping, or prowling, or watching doorways with those amber eyes, waiting for threats that never came. She thought about Professor Kwan's words. Humans couldn't afford incidents. They had to be perfect, better than perfect. Tomorrow she would start working in Professor Taemin's lab. Tomorrow she would be sharing space with a creature that had frightened students and faculty for 15 years. Tomorrow her real test would begin. Hana arrived at Professor Taemin's lab exactly on time. The door slid open, revealing a large space filled with equipment she recognized and some she didn't. Workstations lined the walls. In the center was a large table covered with data pads and sample containers. And in the far corner, lying on what looked like a cushioned platform, was Buell. The creature's eyes opened the moment Hana stepped inside. That amber gaze fixed on her. A low growl started. Quiet but unmistakable. You're the new human assistant. Professor Taemin didn't look up from his workstation. Your credentials say you specialize in behavioral studies. Yes, Professor. Interesting choice for a human. Most of your species who apply here focus on technology or medicine. He finally turned to look at her. His expression was unreadable. Why behavior? I think understanding how different species think and act is the key to cooperation. Logical. He gestured to an empty workstation. You'll work there. Today you'll be organizing genetic samples from our last field expedition. The files are already loaded. I expect accuracy, not speed. Hana moved to the workstation, very aware that Buell's eyes followed her every step. She sat down and brought up the files. The data was complex, showing genetic markers from dozens of species. She focused on the work, trying to ignore the constant weight of that amber stare. 2 other research assistants were already in the lab. One was Vesh, the Keltheran she had seen at orientation. The other was a Pixith named Dalsu. Both of them watched Hana with clear curiosity. So you're the human everyone's talking about, Vesh said after an hour of silence. His tone wasn't friendly. Must be exciting being part of such an important project. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Of course you are. Vesh returned to his work, but Hana heard him mutter something to Dalsu. They both laughed quietly. The growling from Buell's corner had never stopped. It was constant, like background noise. Every time Hana moved, even just to reach for a different data pad, the growling would get slightly louder. Professor Taemin seemed to not notice. He was absorbed in his research, occasionally calling out instructions to one of the assistants. But Hana noticed that whenever she was the one receiving instructions, Buell would rise to its feet, watching more intently. Lunch came and went. Hana ate at her workstation, not wanting to leave and then have to come back. The other assistants left together, talking in low voices. Professor Taemin disappeared into a side office. For 30 minutes, Hana was alone in the lab with Bayul. The creature stood up and began pacing. Its claws clicked against the floor. It never took its eyes off Hana. The growling grew louder. Hana kept working, but her hands were shaking. She tried to remember Professor Kwan's advice. Don't show fear. Don't approach. Bayul moved closer. Just a few steps, but enough that Hana's heart rate spiked. She forced herself to breathe normally. The creature was testing her. She couldn't react. When Professor Taemin returned, Bayul immediately went back to its platform and lay down. The professor glanced at Hana, then at his companion, but said nothing. The pattern repeated itself every day. Hana would arrive. Bayul would growl. She would work while feeling those amber eyes on her constantly. The other assistants would make small comments that weren't quite rude enough to complain about. And Professor Taemin would work in focused silence, expecting perfection from everyone. After 2 weeks, Vesh became bolder. I heard humans were cleared for probationary membership in the Concordat, he said one afternoon. Emphasis on probationary. Amazing that they let your species into advanced research programs so quickly. Hana's work has been accurate, Professor Taemin said without looking up. Oh, I'm sure. I just mean, well, humans are still largely unknown, unpredictable. Some might say potentially dangerous. Vesh glanced at Bayul. It's interesting how the professor's companion seems so uncomfortable around her. Dalsu shifted nervously. Vesh, maybe I'm just making an observation. Bill has excellent instincts. If the creature is constantly agitated around our human colleague, perhaps there's a reason. Professor Taemin's head snapped up. Vesh, that's enough. The Keltharan fell silent, but he smiled at Hana. It wasn't a kind smile. That evening, Hana stayed late to finish analyzing a particularly complex data set. The other assistants had left hours ago. Professor Taemin was still in his office, but the door was closed. Bayul lay on its platform, apparently sleeping. Hana worked carefully, cross-referencing genetic markers and making notes. She was so focused that she didn't hear the door to the professor's office open. I need to attend a faculty meeting, Professor Taemin said, making Hana jump. How much longer will you be working? Maybe another hour, Professor. He looked at Bayul, then at Hana. Something crossed his face. Concern? Doubt? Lock the lab when you leave. The system will log your exit. Yes, Professor. He left. The main door slid shut behind him. For several minutes, nothing changed. Hana continued working. Bayul continued sleeping. Then the creature's eyes opened. Bayul stood up. The growling started immediately, but it sounded different, higher pitched. The creature began pacing, moving back and forth near the door the professor had used. Its tail lashed. The spines on its back were raised. Hana watched carefully. This wasn't the same behavior as before. Bill wasn't watching her. The creature kept looking at the door, waiting. The pacing grew more agitated. Bill's claws scraped against the floor. It whined, a sound Hana had never heard it make before. Then it began scratching at the door, leaving marks on the metal. This wasn't aggression. This was distress. Hana stood up slowly. Bill's head whipped around and the growling intensified. But now that Hana was really paying attention, she could see the creature's body language. The ears weren't forward in threat. They were pinned back. The tail wasn't raised in dominance. It was tucked. The eyes weren't narrowed in aggression. They were wide. Bill was scared. The realization hit Hana like a physical blow. 15 years of rumors, of warnings, of students pressing themselves against walls. Everyone thought Bayul was aggressive, dangerous, a predator barely contained. But what if they were wrong? What if Bayul wasn't threatening people? What if it was protecting itself from perceived threats? What if the constant growling was anxiety, not aggression? Hana thought about earth animals. Dogs who growled when scared. Cats who hissed when cornered. Prey animals who displayed aggression when they had no escape route. Bayul had been raised by Professor Taemin, bonded to him, and everyone else treated it like a monster. Of course it was anxious. Of course it watched strangers carefully. It had probably learned that everyone except its bonded person was a potential threat. The creature was still growling, still watching her, but Hana saw it differently now. She saw the tension in its muscles, the quick breathing, the way it kept glancing at the door where its person had disappeared. Separation anxiety. That's what this was. Hana had studied animal behavior on Earth. She had worked with rescue dogs, with abused horses, with wild animals brought into rehabilitation centers. She knew the signs of trauma and stress. Biol was suffering. Had probably been suffering for years. And everyone, even Professor Taman, had misunderstood why. The creature took a step toward her. The growling was loud now, filling the lab. Hana's instincts screamed at her to back away, but she had learned to trust understanding over instinct. She needed to help this creature, but first she needed to not be seen as a threat. Hana slowly sat down on the floor. She made herself smaller, less threatening. She kept her movements slow and deliberate. Bill stopped advancing, confused by this unexpected behavior. "It's okay," Hana said softly. "He'll come back." "He always comes back, doesn't he?" Biol's growling didn't stop, but it didn't get louder either. "You're scared. I understand. Everyone leaves you. Everyone treats you like you're dangerous. But you're not dangerous. You're just scared." She kept talking, her voice low and calm. Biol watched her, those amber eyes uncertain now instead of aggressive, and Hana began to form a plan. Hana sat on the floor of the lab for 20 minutes just talking to Biol. She told the creature about Earth, about dogs and cats and horses, about how humans had lived alongside animals for thousands of years, about how they had learned to understand creatures that couldn't speak their language. Biol stopped pacing. The creature sat down about 3 meters away, still growling but watching Hana with what looked like curiosity. "My grandmother had a dog," Hana said. "Big dog. Looked scary to people who didn't know him. But he was scared of everything. Thunder, fireworks, being left alone. We learned how to help him feel safe." She slowly extended her hand, palm down, not reaching toward Biol but just letting the creature see. "I know you're not a dog. You're much more than that. But maybe we're not so different. Maybe you just need someone who understands." Biol's growling quieted to a low rumble. The creature's nostrils flared, scenting the air, taking in Hana's smell, learning. "I'm going to move a little closer. Just a little. Tell me if it's too much." Hana shifted forward on the floor, moving maybe half a meter. Biol tensed but didn't retreat. The growling increased slightly, then faded again. "Good. That's good. You're so brave, Biol. So much braver than anyone knows." Another small movement forward, then another. It took 15 minutes to cross the distance between them. By the end, Hana was within touching distance of a creature that had terrified students and faculty for 15 years. Her heart was pounding. Every instinct told her this was insane. One wrong move and those jaws could snap her bones like twigs. But she had watched Biol's body language carefully. The creature was scared, yes, but it wasn't preparing to attack. It was curious, maybe even hopeful. "I'm going to touch you now," Hana whispered. "Just behind your ear. Just for a second. If you don't like it, I'll stop." She raised her hand slowly. Biol's eyes tracked the movement. The growling rose. Hana kept moving, steady and calm. Her fingers touched the scales behind Biol's ear-like auditory ridge. The effect was instant. The growling stopped. Completely. Biol froze, eyes wide. Hana gently scratched the way she would pet a nervous dog. The scales were warm under her fingers, smooth but with a slight texture. She found the edge of the ridge and scratched there. Biol made a sound. Not a growl. Something else. A deep rumble that came from the creature's chest, but it was different, softer. Almost like a purr. "Oh," Hana breathed. "Oh, you like that," she kept scratching. Biol's eyes slowly closed. The creature's body relaxed. After a minute, it leaned into her hand. Hana tried other spots. Under the jaw, between the spines on the back, the base of the tail. Each spot produced a different reaction. Some made Biol's leg twitch. Some made that rumbling purr grow louder. Some made the creature turn to give her better access. This was what had been missing. Physical affection, comfort, touch without fear. She thought about what Minho had told her. Professor Taiman had raised Biol for 15 years. But Vrelnathi culture valued logic over emotion. Maybe the professor had never thought to give his companion this kind of attention. Maybe he didn't know Biol needed it. Hana spent the next hour on the floor with Biol. They moved to the creature's platform, where Biol sprawled out and let Hana find every spot that needed scratching. The massive predator was reduced to a content-rumbling puddle. "You're not a Terror-Hound at all," Hana said softly. "You're just lonely, aren't you?" Biol's tail thumped against the platform. The lab door opened. Professor Taman walked in and stopped dead. His expression was shock. Pure, complete shock. Hana looked up at him. Buell's head was resting in her lap. The creature looked peaceful. Calm. Nothing like the aggressive guardian everyone knew. What? Professor Tayman's voice trailed off. He approached slowly, as if afraid sudden movement would break the spell. What did you do? I scratched behind its ears. You. What? Hana gently moved Buell's head and stood up. The creature made a disappointed noise but didn't growl. Buell isn't aggressive, Professor. It's anxious. The growling, the watching, all of it. It's anxiety behavior, not predator behavior. Professor Tayman looked at his companion, then at Hana. That's impossible. I've consulted with specialists. Behaviorists from 6 different species. They all said Buell has dominance aggression issues, that it tolerates me but sees others as threats or rivals. Did any of them actually interact with Buell? They tried. Buell wouldn't let them get close, because it was scared, because everyone treats it like it's dangerous, so it acts dangerous to protect itself. Hana moved to stand beside the professor. Watch. She walked back to Buell and scratched behind the creature's ear again. The purring rumble started immediately. Physical affection, social contact, emotional reassurance. Buell needs these things. When you left earlier, it started scratching at the door, pacing, whining. That's separation anxiety, not aggression. Professor Tayman was silent for a long moment. His scales had gone very pale. I've had Buell since it hatched from an egg. I raised it, trained it. I thought I understood it. You do understand it. But maybe not all of it. Vrelnathi culture is different from human culture. You approach things logically. You see problems and solve them through analysis. Hana kept petting Buell. Humans evolved differently. We lived with animals for thousands of years. Dogs, cats, horses. We had to learn to read emotions in species that couldn't talk to us. It became part of how we think. You're saying humans are naturally better at understanding emotional behavior. Not better. Just different. Your approach is valuable. My approach is valuable. Together they might be more complete. The professor sat down on a nearby stool. He looked tired. I've been trying to solve Buell's aggression problem for 6 years. 6 years. I've spent credits on consultants. I've tried different training methods, medication, environmental changes. Nothing worked. And you? He shook his head. You did in 1 hour what I couldn't do in 6 years. You did the hard part. You gave Buell a safe home. You raised it. You protected it. I just understood what it needed next. Buell got up and walked over to Professor Tayman. The creature bumped its head against his leg. The professor automatically reached down and touched Buell's head, but his movements were stiff, uncertain. Show me, he said quietly. Show me how to do what you did. Hana spent the next hour teaching Professor Tayman how to pet his own companion, where to scratch, how to read the body language that meant Buell was enjoying the attention versus tolerating it, how to recognize the difference between anxious growling and content rumbling. It's like learning a new language, the professor said. I've been listening to Buell for years, but I was translating it wrong. Not wrong, incomplete. Now you have more vocabulary. By the time Hana left the lab that night, Professor Tayman was sitting on Buell's platform, scratching behind the creature's ears while reading through research notes on his datapad. Buell looked happier than Hana had ever seen it. She walked back to her dormitory in a daze. What had just happened? She had approached a creature everyone feared and turned it into a contented companion. She had taught a respected professor something about his own bonded animal, and she had done it by being human. By using the instincts her species had developed over thousands of years of living alongside animals. When she got to her room, she found a message waiting. From Professor Tayman, it was short, thank you. I would like to discuss making your position in my lab permanent, and I would like to formally request your assistance in studying Buell's behavioral patterns. If you're willing, this could become your primary research project. Please come to my office tomorrow at 0900. Hana read the message 3 times. Then she sat on her bed and started laughing. Not from humor, from relief, from joy, from the sudden realization that maybe, just maybe, she had found her place in the galaxy. She sent a quick reply accepting the offer. Then she lay back and stared at the ceiling, thinking about amber eyes and rumbling purrs and the way fear could look like aggression if you didn't know how to read the signs. Tomorrow everything would change. She could feel it. News traveled fast at Galactic Concordat University. By the next morning, everyone knew that the human had somehow tamed Professor Tayman's Terror-Hound. The story grew with each telling. Some said Hana had used pheromone manipulation. Others claimed humans had secret telepathic abilities they hadn't disclosed to the Concordat. A few whispered that it was dangerous, that humans were more unpredictable than anyone had realized. Hana walked through the corridors and felt eyes following her. Some students looked at her with new respect, others with suspicion, a few with outright hostility. Minho caught up with her outside the cafeteria. "Is it true? Did you really pet Buell?" I scratched behind its ears. "And it didn't try to bite your hand off?" "No." It purred. Minho's scales shifted through 3 different colors in rapid succession, which Hana had learned meant he was processing something shocking. I don't even know what to say. Everyone's talking about it. Some people think it's amazing. Others think it's suspicious. Suspicious how? Like maybe humans have abilities they didn't tell the Concordat about when they applied for membership. Like maybe your species is more dangerous than you let on. Minho's voice dropped. "Hana, be careful. Not everyone is happy about this." She found out what he meant when she arrived at Professor Tayman's lab. Fesh was already there and his expression was cold. "So the human has special powers now," he said. "How convenient. I don't have powers. I just understood what Buell needed." "Right. You, a graduate student who's been here less than a month, figured out something that trained specialists couldn't solve in years. That's not suspicious at all." Professor Tayman emerged from his office. "Vesh, either be professional or leave my lab." The Keltharan's face darkened, but he turned back to his workstation without another word. The professor gestured for Hana to follow him into his office. Once the door closed, his formal demeanor softened slightly. "I've been researching human-animal interaction history. Earth databases. It's fascinating. Your species domesticated wolves into dogs over 15,000 years ago. You've lived alongside dozens of species forming bonds across genetic lines. It's part of our culture. Animals aren't just animals to humans. They're companions, friends, family. That concept is difficult for many species to understand. Vrelnathi keep animals for practical purposes. Food, research, transportation. We don't form emotional bonds with them." He paused. "Or we didn't until I raised Buell. I bonded with it, but I didn't understand that bond was emotional. I treated it like a logical arrangement. Mutual benefit. Buell needed more than that. Yes, and I failed to provide it because I didn't know it was needed." Professor Tayman pulled up a holographic display. "I've compiled some data. Buell's stress hormone levels over the past 5 years. Look at this spike pattern." The graph showed regular spikes, each one corresponding to times when Professor Tayman had left Buell alone for extended periods. Every time you left, its stress increased. Yes, I thought it was normal variation. I didn't realize Buell was experiencing separation anxiety. The professor manipulated the display. "I've also been reviewing security footage from the lab. Watch Buell's behavior when different people enter." The footage showed various students and faculty members entering the lab over several months. In each case, Buell's body language was the same. Ears back, tail tucked. Defensive posture. "It's scared of them," Hana said. "Scared. Not aggressive." "You were right. I spent years solving the wrong problem." Professor Tayman looked at her. "I want you to lead a research project studying Buell's behavioral patterns. But more than that, I want to know if other species in the university are being misunderstood in similar ways. Could human insight help with other behavioral problems? I'd need to observe the animals. Talk to their keepers. It would take time. You have time, and you have my full support." Over the next week, Hana's role in the lab changed completely. She spent hours observing Buell, documenting how the creature responded to different types of interaction. Professor Tayman learned quickly, and within days he was providing Buell with the affection and reassurance it had been missing. The transformation was remarkable. Buell stopped growling at everyone. It became calmer, more confident. But not everyone was happy about it. Besh's hostility grew more obvious each day. He made comments about humans overstepping their place, about how emotional thinking was inferior to logical analysis, about how the Concordat had made a mistake granting humans provisional membership. Other faculty members began asking questions. Professor Kwan warned Hana that there was talk in the administration. Some members thought humans had hidden the full extent of their abilities during the membership application process. Others worried that emotional intelligence was a euphemism for manipulation. Then came the formal complaint. A group of faculty members, led by a Thalaxian professor named Dayun, filed a petition with the university administration. The petition claimed that humans represented a behavioral security risk and called for a hearing to investigate whether human students should be restricted in their interactions with other species. Professor Quan delivered the news to Hana in his office. He looked exhausted. I tried to prevent this, but Dayun has support from several influential faculty members. The hearing is in 3 days. A hearing about what? Whether humans are dangerous, whether human emotional intelligence represents an undisclosed ability that could be used to manipulate other species, whether allowing humans unrestricted access to animal research programs is safe, whether humanity's membership in the Concordat should come with more limitations. Hana felt her stomach drop. This is because I helped Bile. This is because you did something that looked like magic to species who don't understand emotional intelligence. They're scared, Hana, not of you personally, of what they don't understand. So what do? You testify. You explain what you did and why. You help them understand. Professor Quan leaned forward. And you better be convincing, because the outcome of this hearing will affect every human in the Concordat. Not just at this university. Everywhere. The next 3 days were a blur. Hana prepared her testimony, researching human-animal interaction history, compiling data on emotional intelligence studies, and documenting everything she had done with Buell. Professor Taemin offered to testify on her behalf. So did Minho and several other students who had witnessed Buell's transformation. But Vash and his supporters were preparing too. Hana heard rumors that they were building a case that humans had deliberately hidden their abilities, that emotional intelligence was just a polite term for empathic manipulation, that allowing humans into positions where they could influence other species was dangerous. The night before the hearing, Hana couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. She had come to Veritas Prime to prove herself, to show that humans belonged in the galactic community. Instead, she had triggered a crisis that could affect her entire species. But she had also helped Bile. She had seen the transformation in that creature. The happiness, the peace, that had to count for something. A message arrived on her data pad. From Professor Taemin. Whatever happens tomorrow, you should know that you've already succeeded. You helped me understand my companion in ways I never imagined possible. That's not manipulation. That's gift. Don't let them convince you otherwise. Hana read the message several times. Then she got up and started reviewing her testimony one more time. Tomorrow she would stand in front of the university administration and defend not just herself, but her entire species. She intended to make it count. The hearing room was larger than Hana expected. Rows of seats filled with faculty members, students, and administrators. At the front sat a panel of 5 senior administrators representing different species. Professor Dayun, the Thalaxian who had filed the petition, sat with a group of supporters to one side. Hana sat with Professor Quan and Professor Taemin. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together to hide it. The lead administrator of Relnathi named Hyun called the hearing to order. His voice was formal and cold. We are here to address concerns about human behavioral capabilities and their implications for interspecies interactions within the Concordat. Professor Dayun, please present your case. Dayun stood. She was tall and thin with gray skin and large dark eyes. Thank you. The facts are simple. A human graduate student with less than 1 month of experience at this institution succeeded in modifying the behavior of a creature that has resisted behavioral intervention for years. She did this without specialized training in Vrelnathi fauna, without consultation with experts, without any apparent difficulty. She pulled up a holographic display showing Bayul before and after. The difference was striking. This raises serious questions. What capabilities do humans possess that they did not disclose during their Concordat membership application? Can these capabilities be used to manipulate other species? Are we allowing potential behavioral manipulators unrestricted access to our communities? Murmurs spread through the audience. Hana felt her face getting hot. Furthermore, Dayun continued, humans claim this ability stems from what they call emotional intelligence. But this is a vague term. We have no standardized way to measure it. No way to regulate it. For all we know, humans could be using empathic manipulation without our knowledge. The Concordat cannot afford to take such risks. She sat down. The panel conferred briefly, then Hyon spoke. We will hear from the human student. Hana, please approach. Hana stood on shaking legs and walked to the center of the room. Hundreds of eyes watched her. She thought about Buell, about amber eyes and rumbling purrs, and found her courage. Thank you for hearing me. I understand your concerns. What I did with Buell looks mysterious if you don't understand the context. But there's no mystery, no hidden ability, just knowledge that humans gained over thousands of years of living alongside animals. She pulled up her own display. Images of Earth animals appeared: dogs, cats, horses, birds. Before humans reached the stars, we shared our planet with millions of species. We couldn't talk to them. They couldn't talk to us. But we needed to cooperate, to survive. So we learned to read body language, facial expressions, vocal tones. We learned to recognize fear, happiness, pain, curiosity. More images. Ancient humans with wolves, farmers with cattle, riders with horses. We domesticated some species. But domestication wasn't conquest. It was partnership. We changed them and they changed us. We became better at understanding emotions, at reading intentions, at forming bonds across genetic lines. A video played showing a nervous dog being calmed by a human. The same techniques Hana had used with Buell. This is what I did. I recognized that Buell was scared, not aggressive. I used methods humans have refined over 15,000 years of working with scared animals. There's no manipulation, just understanding. Professor Deun stood. But that's exactly the problem. You're describing an ability to influence emotional states across species barriers. How is that not manipulation? Because manipulation implies deception. I didn't trick Buell. I gave it what it needed. Comfort, reassurance, physical affection. These are universal needs. Buell was suffering. I helped end that suffering. Is that manipulation or is that compassion? You changed its behavior without its consent. I gave it choices. Every step of the way I watched its body language. If Buell had told me to stop, I would have stopped. But it didn't. It chose to trust me. Hana felt her voice getting stronger. The real question isn't whether humans can influence behavior. Every species can influence behavior through their actions. The question is whether we do it ethically, with respect, with the other being's welfare in mind. Professor Taemin stood. May I speak? Yon nodded. The professor walked to stand beside Hana. I am Vrel Nathi. My species values logic above emotion. For 15 years, I tried to solve my companion's behavioral problems using logic. I consulted experts. I analyzed data. I tried everything my culture taught me to try. I failed, not because I lacked intelligence or dedication, but because I was missing a piece of the puzzle. He gestured to Hana. This human gave me that piece. She didn't manipulate Buell. She didn't manipulate me. She taught me to see what I was missing. My companion is happier now, healthier, more confident. I am a better keeper because of what I learned from a human graduate student. Is that dangerous? Or is that valuable? Professor Kwan stood next. I've been reviewing human contributions to the Concordat since our membership was approved. Humans have helped establish better welfare standards in 4 different research facilities. We've identified stress behaviors in 6 species that were being misinterpreted as aggression. We've improved training protocols for companion animals across 3 worlds. These aren't manipulations. They're insights, and they're desperately needed. He pulled up his own display showing a graph. I've also compiled data on interspecies conflicts within the Concordat. Diplomatic failures, trade disputes, academic disagreements. In 70% of cases, the root cause was emotional misunderstanding. One species interpreting another's behavior incorrectly, reacting to perceived hostility that was actually fear, or confusion, or cultural difference. The graph transformed, showing projected improvements. If humans can help bridge these gaps, if we can teach other species to recognize emotional subtext the way we do, the benefits could be enormous. Fewer conflicts, better cooperation, deeper understanding. Dayon shook her head. Or it could be weaponized. Emotional intelligence could become emotional manipulation. How do we protect against that? How do you protect against any ability being misused? Hana asked. Keltheran have superior spatial reasoning. That could be used to design better weapons. The Laxian have perfect memory. That could be used for espionage. Vrelnathi have exceptional analytical abilities that could be used to exploit economic systems. Every species has abilities that could be dangerous if misused. The question is intent. She took a breath. Humans don't want to manipulate anyone. We want to understand, to connect, to help. Yes, we read emotions well, but we use that ability to build bridges, not burn them. You can regulate it if you want. Require oversight for human researchers working with behavioral studies. Make us document our methods. Test our intentions. We'll cooperate, but don't punish us for having a different kind of intelligence than yours. The panel conferred for several minutes. Finally, Hyun spoke. We will take a short recess to discuss this matter. The wait was agonizing. Hana sat with Professor Kwan and Professor Taemin, unable to speak. Students and faculty whispered around them. Some looked sympathetic, others angry. After an hour, the panel returned. Hyun's expression was unreadable. We have reached a decision. The concerns raised about human behavioral capabilities are legitimate. However, we find no evidence of malicious intent or deceptive practices. What humans call emotional intelligence is not a hidden weapon. It is a valid form of cognition developed through unique evolutionary circumstances. He paused. Furthermore, we recognize that the Concordat has been operating with a significant blind spot. Many species, including my own Vrelnathi, approach problems primarily through logic and analysis. We have undervalued emotional understanding. Humans offer a perspective we need. Hana felt her heart pounding. Therefore, we reject the petition to restrict human activities. Instead, we are formally requesting that humans establish a new field of academic study, empathic xenobiology. This field will focus on understanding the emotional and behavioral needs of different species. Humans will be invited to lead this initiative, with oversight from a multi-species committee to ensure ethical standards are maintained. The room erupted in noise. Some people cheered. Others protested. Hyun raised his hand for silence. This decision is final. Hana, you will be offered a full research position focusing on this new field. Professor Taemin, we ask that you work with her to develop the curriculum and research protocols. Professor Kwan, you will coordinate with Earth to recruit additional human researchers with appropriate expertise. Daeon looked furious, but she said nothing. As the hearing concluded and people began filing out, Minho approached Hana with a huge grin. You did it. You actually did it. I didn't do anything. I just explained. You changed everything. The whole Concordat is going to be different now because of what you said today. Over the next weeks, the transformation became real. Hana's research position was formalized. Other human researchers arrived, experts in animal behavior and cross-species communication. The empathic xenobiology program launched with students from dozens of species eager to learn. Hana walked through campus one morning with Professor Taemin and Bayul. The creature no longer scared other students. Instead, they watched with curiosity. Some even asked if they could pet Bayul. Professor Taemin allowed it, and Hana showed them the proper way to approach.